The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious.
The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hi, the Scottish Independence Podcast is your chance to hear some different views on what the independence referendum means for Scotland. Hello and welcome to Scottish Independence Podcast number 20. And for this episode, last Thursday I spoke to the Rev Stu Campbell from Wings Over Scotland, which is by now quite a famous website, and I'm sure the vast majority of you listening to this will have visited there many times. And strangely enough, one of the things we were talking about was hiding of the facts, and well, I don't know if you've seen what's been going on yet last night with a certain video, but I'm sure you've seen it by now. Okay, so we'll just go straight to the conversation and we'll have a wee word at the end. Hello, so I'm with the Rev Stu Campbell from the Wings Over Scotland site. You probably know it. It's now officially more popular than the Scotsman. How you doing, Stu? Or is it Stu or Stuart?
I don't mind.
Okay. So hello, Stuart. How you doing?
I'm not too bad at all, Michael. Thanks.
All right. You're now more popular than the Scotsman. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling all right about that. It's an apples and oranges comparison. It's not really fair on the Scotsman, but I'm not too fussed about that.
So first, I suppose, could you tell us a bit about the Wings project? How did it get started and what you putting the success down to?
Yeah, I mean, it started because I couldn't really find anyone saying the things that I wanted to be said. I got fed up of just shouting at the TV when Newsnight Scotland was on and looking for something on some kind of blog that would say the things that I thought needed saying. And there just didn't seem to be one. And the answer in that kind of situation is usually do it yourself.
Yeah, that's what these podcasts are about in a large part as well. But I mean, it's been phenomenally successful. You've obviously proved with it that there's quite a large market out for that opinion. Has it surprised you how popular it's been?
I am surprised how popular it got and how fast. I mean, we're as we speak, the last month we've had over 42,000 unique readers, and that's according to Google Analytics, which probably means you're more in the sort of 50 to 60 region because of the way they count their statistics. And yeah, I mean that's beyond my wildest dreams for, what are we, 15 months in?
Yeah, it's incredible. So where's it going to go for the next period with the project? Obviously with the referendum coming up, all eyes are focused on that. So have you got any plans, any new things to roll out for the site?
No, I mean our plans are to do more of the same, bigger and better.
So can I ask a bit about yourself? How did you begin to get involved in politics? Was it something you've been into from a young age, or is it a more recent development?
I've always been interested in politics for as long back as I can remember. The idea of sort of writing about it is as I say, it only came about because nobody else was doing it for me. I've written mostly about culture in my career, written about video games and comedy and TV and all that sort of stuff, and never really got involved in politics. But as I say, needs must.
Yeah. If you'd like to give a bit about your history writing in these other areas, because I'm sure a lot of people know you just as the Rev Stu from Wings now, but maybe not from before.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a journalist in a fairly loose sense of the term, I suppose, for 22 years now. I started in January 1991 when I got a job on a video games magazine. I was staff there for 3 and a bit years. I ended up as the editor of the magazine. Left that to go into video game development, and then ever since then I've been freelance one way or another.
Is it paying the bills?
Just about. It's harder and harder for journalism to pay the bills these days, which is why we had our big fundraiser thing. I mean, it is very hard, even in the entirely full-time professional sphere, to get paid a decent wage for being a journalist anymore.
But I believe your funding drive went very well.
Yeah, the funding drive, much like the readership figures, has exceeded my wildest expectations. I mean, we're well past 20,000 quid now, and we've still got a fortnight to go. And
so where are you at just now, if you don't mind me asking? Are you Edinburgh, Glasgow?
No, as we've said on the site a number of times, I live in Bath in southwest England.
Ah, sorry, I wasn't aware of that. So Do you have conversations about this with people down there? Is it a conversation that ever comes up if you don't bring it up, or if it does come up, what do people say about it?
It comes up very rarely down here. People are not particularly interested, to be honest. And when they are interested, they're extremely poorly informed. The UK news and media coverage of it is very, very poor.
So do you find yourself providing a corrective quite often, or just explaining it to people about the reasons behind it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I do quite a lot of... I never bring the subject up because I figure it's entirely legitimate for English people not to be that interested. But when people do, especially if they've heard about what I've done on the site and things, then yeah, it's you have to do an awful lot of firefighting just correcting the stuff that gets put out by the Express and the Mail in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting area. You know, the English public seem to be either not interested or not too predisposed against the idea of Scottish independence, but it's the British state that seems to be particularly against it, and vociferously so. I mean, it's something you've covered on the site quite often. I mean, what do you make of that, the difference between the public and the state on this down south?
Yeah, that's very much my experience. Most people, if I had to sum up the universal opinion of England based on people I speak to, then people's attitude is, well, yeah, if that's what you want, good luck to you.
I find it very odd the way that the state is so, you know, I don't find it odd actually. The state's so vociferously against the interests of the people. So in the independence debate at the moment that's going on in Scotland, what struck you most about it so far? Just in the general picture before going to the specifics. What do you find most interesting about the general way it's moving at the moment?
I think, that's an interesting question. I mean, it's as you say about the state. It's not surprising the directions the debate has gone. Most of the No campaign seems to be focused on avoiding debate. They will do anything to stop the facts coming out and being discussed in a rational manner, and the only plausible reason for that, the only rational reason for that, is that they don't want the facts to come out. Somebody on my website once said about the debate over who subsidises who, does Scotland pay its own way and stuff. They said there's only one side in this debate that has access to all the facts, and that's the UK government. The UK government knows everything. It knows stuff that is concealed from Holyrood, concealed from people. And if those figures conclusively proved that Scotland was subsidised by the UK, that Scotland's economic case would be completely hopeless, we would be hearing about that every minute of every hour of every day. And the fact that instead they try and hide everything they possibly can, I think tells you a lot about the merits of the arguments.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, don't you find that a lot of the scare stories that come out anyway just fly in the face of that anyway? They just publish any old thing, like, without the facts, and then assertion becomes fact in the media echo chamber.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's completely counterproductive. I think we've seen in recent months with things, people like Kevin McKenna's comments and Joyce McMillan's comments and stuff that we've carried on Wings Over Scotland. I think even people who are absolutely natural unionists, instinctive unionists, are starting to see how poor the case is. I think they've become frustrated and exasperated, and I think eventually they've gone, God, maybe there actually is a case here. Why is everything being hidden from me?
Do you think this gives a big opportunity for the Yes campaign to turn a lot of no's into yeses?
Absolutely. I mean, the Yes campaign has been criticised, quite legitimately, I think, for a very passive approach so far. It spends a lot of its time just refuting the allegations of the No campaign rather than actively making a case. I don't particularly have a problem with that because at the moment they're doing all our work for us. I think if we just let them keep on with these increasingly shrill, increasingly panicky attacks, then eventually we will have people so scunnered with it that when we actually start to make the case properly, it'll be pushing at an open door.
Yeah, because it's, if you keep telling someone they're too small, too stupid, there's the danger they'll start to believe you, but there's also the danger that they might react and say, no, sod it. No, that's not the case. We're going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't instinctively believe the line that Scotland is somehow the only country in the world incapable of running its own affairs.
But the thing about the Yes campaign being more aggressive that you mentioned, I was thinking, they could be pointing out the deficiencies in the United Kingdom more. So, for example, I was listening to a thing this morning. In Britain, we live in the smallest houses in Europe, generally some of the poorest built, with the worst air quality. And you can imagine the Yes campaign, thanks UK, or but I don't know how you would feel about that kind of campaign.
Yeah, I'm not sure aggressive is the thing that I would want Yes Scotland to be more of. I think how they see it is that there's just no point really in really going at people just now, because we're still so far out from the vote. And also, I don't know how much money they've got. They might just be having to keep their powder dry. But yeah, that kind of, I think there's a place for a certain kind of negativity. It's not just the negativity that you get from the Better Together campaign about how everyone's a liar and everyone's an idiot and everyone's a fantasist because they think Scotland we could run our own country. I think there is a case, as you say, for just pointing out what a bad job is being done and has been done by not just the current government but by previous Labour ones. There is no meaningful democratic choice in the UK anymore. So the trajectory that we're on in terms of living standards and everything else is the trajectory that we're going to be on for the next generation and probably more to come.
You mentioned Labour there. What do you think about the behaviour of the Labour Party, particularly in Holyrood, so far in all of this?
I think if I was a Labour voter, I would be embarrassed by the standard of Scottish Labour in particular. I mean, it really is. It's their D team. It's embarrassing. You wouldn't trust one of them to hold your jacket.
Yeah, I find FMQs, because I'm sort of involved in writing about politics as yourself, it's kind of a chore to watch it more than, it's supposed to be the great forum of the nation, and the only thing you ever get is a kind of half-decent question from a backbencher on something practical and real. The rest of it's just a slanging match. I don't know if you feel the same way about that when you watch what goes on inside Holyrood, or at least on the big key, it's not the key debates, First Minister's questions, but the big televised ones.
Yeah, I think increasingly there's no point in even tuning in to the first 15 minutes of FMQs anymore. If anything interesting is going to happen, it's as you say, it's going to be some backbencher asking a sensible question. I think Lewis MacDonald did yesterday. The first 15 minutes is just Joanne Lamont and then Ruth Davidson reading off the same script, and it's basically the First Minister's a fat liar.
Yeah, I was thinking of running a Scottish blogger's sweepstake on at what second of what minute Joanne Lamont's going to ask for an apology.
Indeed, or who's going to be called on to resign this week.
Yeah, it's becoming absurd. And then, Davidson, who usually just echoes what Lamont does as well. You'd like to watch it and think, what a great democratic process, but it just never works out like that, I'm afraid.
This week's, I think, was particularly appalling from Ruth Davidson in particular, because the Scottish Government had come up with these oil revenue forecasts, and every one of them was from an independent, renowned world organisation. They were from the OECD and the Oil and Gas UK itself, the Wall Street Journal and stuff. And Ruth Davidson didn't like the numbers that were in those reports. So instead of just dealing with the fact that the facts were not as she would like them to be, and maybe asking a question about something else that was of some relevance to the Scottish people, she basically just stood up and put her fingers in her ears and said, la, I don't believe any of this stuff, you've just made it up. Which is an extraordinary thing for an opposition leader to be saying to the First Minister about published, sourced facts from independent organisations. That is what she said. She literally said, "You've made this up," and that I nearly switched off there and then.
In Westminster, they're supposed to be very careful about accusing each other of lying, like outright accusations of lies. I think in Holyrood they're a little bit less stringent about that. And you've made this up is an accusation of lying.
Yeah, I mean, it's very weird. If you call somebody a liar in the House of Commons, you get ordered from the chamber. And in Hollywood, you do appear to be able to get away with an awful lot of abuse. I mean, Ruth Davidson, several